summoned you here for a purpose.
TransformYourGame.net.
Welcome one, welcome all to the fourth episode of the Transform Your Game podcast. My name is Richard, and I'll be your host and moderator. I have the pleasure and privilege of the company of my three co-hosts this evening, Kent.
Hey, what's up?
Kai.
Hello.
And Joel.
Hey there.
And as we always must, there's first a bit of housekeeping before we charge ahead full bore into spoilers. Firstly, there's an upcoming tournament we would be remiss not to mention. The 7th annual Hunter Burton Memorial Open is coming up here at the end of March in the Dallas area. It's a tournament put on in the name of raising suicide awareness, and they've made the decision to expand their unless something changes in the near future. The start time is looking to be 1 p.m., but if you plan on coming, I'd go ahead and leave yourself a little wiggle room. That reminds me, as of the time this podcast will be released, our Player of the Year update article will have been posted on our site. It announces we're officially accepting submissions for larger regional events to count toward the point total for the Player of the Year tournament in April 2020 or so, I guess Q2, 2021, pardon me. The Hunter Burton tournament is a great example of the type of event we're talking about. Submissions will be accepted at either transformyourgame.net@gmail.com or through the Contact Us section of our website. You can also expect articles to be going up with more regularity from here on out, since we've mostly got this whole podcast thing rolling and underway. I guess the only other thing we wanted to cover this week is our weekly shout-out. I know it kind of started as kind of an ad hoc thing last week, and this week's shout-out, since we like doing it so much, is going out to the Gaming vs. Cancer event coming up this weekend. It's another awesome cause similar to the Hunter Burton, although it's obviously got a different target, and they actually have a Transformers TCG constructed tournament going on during the event, as well as a bunch of other games. If you're looking for something great to support, and you're anywhere near the Southampton area this weekend, try and support it. Go ahead and try and make it out. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, spoiler time. Let's dig in, boys. I'm sure you're already tired of my voice, but I'll go ahead and read the first one. So we're going to start on the characters, and the first character up is going to be Wind Charger. So Wind Charger is super rare. I believe all the super rares actually are regular characters, which is really cool. But what it does is it's a 7-star Autobot card. It's a car and melee in alt mode, and it's got 4 attack, 11 health, and 1 defense. And it has +3 attack during the first turn of the game in this mode. And then when you flip him to the other side, he stays melee but loses car in bot mode, and he's got 3 attack, 11 health, and gains a defense up to 2. And it says, when you flip to this mode, draw a card, then plan 1. Okay, so I love when characters are supposed to be attacking in alt mode. That's kind of like the first thing that pops up to me about this card. Is on the first turn, this guy wants to be in alt mode, which means he's not as flip-intensive of a character as some of the other kind of like really powerful attackers we've seen have been. The +3 means he's got a base 7 in an orange deck. That means you're attacking for, on average, at least 9 on the first turn of the game for 7 stars, which is fantastic. And the fact that he's not flip-intensive in the early parts of the game means that you can kind of set up with your other guys who really need to be flipped to their other modes in order for them to be kind of effective pieces of your team. On top of that, he's got built-in card advantage. And because he's a card, that means you can play him alongside Cliff Jumper if you wanted to really go nuts there. When he would flip to the bot mode, he would get to draw 2 cards. One for the Cliff Jumper trigger and then one for Wind Charger's trigger itself. I don't know that the plan one's gonna come in much, but yeah, that's my first thoughts on this guy.
Cool, yeah. I played cards at length in Wave 1 and beginning of Wave 2 as well. Usually with Cliff Jumper and sometimes with 10-star Wave 2B. I'm really not sure about the lineup that Windcharger goes with. Obviously, he goes in a card stack. Love the fact that he's swinging for 7+, probably at least 9 on his first turn, which is nothing to kind of brush off. That's very, very powerful. And then once you transform him with Cliff Jumper, hey, let's draw 2 right now. Question is who's the other bot that goes with him the best? Is it Wave 2B? Is it Wheeljack? Who's the best fit for the cars deck now? Does Windcharger really even go in the cars deck anymore? I think that he might, But it's definitely going to take some playtesting before we know for sure.
I think he actually works better in like a 4 wide type of deal because he's really cheap, and being able to swing for 7 stars is crazy. Like there's a reason why he's in SR, because they don't want that to happen in limited all that much. I feel you want him to be in 4 wide because him drawing you is basically sort of replacing Cliff Jumper's ability type kind of deal. So, but I mean, just 7 attack is the reason why you want to play him, because you want to get in there immediately. Because you could play. There's also the option to pair him with private downshift, which is one of the omnibots. So you can play a weapon on him if you have a weapon in your hand first turn, and then he just swings for even more. So, but that makes it 15 stars. So it's basically the same problem as with Cliff Jumper. So,
right.
Yeah.
Wind Charger does give you the same kind of ability to double up on drawing cards from Cliff Jumper, much like Dead End, and he would fit in a deck with Dead End and another 5-star card, but he doesn't have to be in a card deck. None of his abilities are anything specific to cars, so he can just be a big swinger. When I see 7 stars on an obviously aggressive character like this, the first thing that pops in my head is something like replacing Fire Drive in a blaster deck and flip over blaster and throw a grenade launcher on this guy, and he's swinging for a lot on turn 1. I mean, that's obviously the best case scenario, getting a grenade launcher, but that's what you want to be doing with this kind of deck, and it's on your first turn, not just the first turn that he gets +3. So you could also have the ability to play an action or an upgrade to go with that. So he can KO a lot of things on your very first turn in something like an aggressive blaster deck.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys have any consideration for whether you think this card is like really, I guess its power level is kind of really affected by the die roll? Because I mean, tell me if this isn't like you guys' experience, but kind of a lot of what I have seen happen when you're on the draw with an aggressive deck is that your opponent will throw out kind of their first guy who they don't care if he dies, or they don't care if he gets hit with a ton of damage. You know, you could swing into him for a ton of bricks, and a lot of times be like, yeah, he's mostly a shield. That's the reason that character or she is actually even like on the team, right?
Skydive comes to mind.
Skydive is a great example, or Aimless in any of the lineups that play Aimless, or I mean, there's a whole ton of things that are kind of in that same vein. Whereas, like, if you're on the play with Wind Charger, being able to take that +3 attack, you know, that built-in leap into battle, kind of into any character on their team, seems not infinitely, but significantly more powerful to me as like a game option. I don't know. I was thinking about the 4-wide cards deck, but as like a potential build for him, just the fact that you get to double up on like the dead end ability. But I'm not sure. I think you just want to be in an aggressive shell that likes going first. I mean, or maybe can like kind of compensate for the lack of power in Wind Charger when you're on the draw through other means. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think it has room, because of its low star value, it has room to fit into a multiple, different deck archetypes. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah, definitely worth being an SR, right?
I like it.
All right, well, Wind Charger also has a stratagem. It's called All Out. It's 1 star, and then it says it's a consumable one, which I think are the most interesting ones, even if they're not the most powerful. But it says once per game, Wind Charger he attacks and he's your only character on the battlefield. He gets +3 attack until end of battle, and then you get to flip it back face, or it's consumed. I don't know that this is going to be really what you want to be doing with Wind Charger, in that I think because he wants to be attacking first because of the bonus on his alt mode, that he's very unlikely to be your last remaining character, since he only has 11 health is nothing to sneeze at, but 1 defense is just nothing, really. And if he wants to be getting aggressive, then I really just don't see very many worlds where he lives for this to be relevant. I'm a little bummed that he has to be the only character on the battlefield. I think it'd be maybe too good if that text wasn't on there. You would have to be able to, I guess, like, if you use on the first turn, it's too busted for me. But I'm not really interested in the stratagem. I'm interested much more in the 7-star character. How about y'all?
Yeah, I agree with that. It seems hard for Wind Charger to be the last surviving bot on your team, if he was the first one to lead out the attack. So unless, you just have some big giant target like Jetfire that, your enemy wants to really zone in on killing him, then I don't, it's hard to think of a time when this is actually going to be useful.
Yeah, I think that's all we have to say on that, right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. This card is almost unplayable.
Don't worry, we've got some actually unplayable ones further in the cast.
Oh,
Isn't that right, Joel?
That's right.
All right.
All right, the next card is Roadbuster. He is also an SRT, and in alt mode, he is a leader and a wrecker. It looks like he might be a truck car, but he's neither. He is only a leader and a wrecker, and I think that's pretty significant to point out. He is 11 stars. He has 5 attack, 14 health, and 3 defense. When he is in alt mode, when you upgrade this with an armor, repair 1 damage from him. Going over to bot mode, he is still a leader and a wrecker, but he is not melee, ranged, or specialist. Very important to point out. He has now 6 attack, 14 health, and 2 defense. When you upgrade this with a weapon, do 1 damage to an enemy. I feel like this guy is better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. Yes, his star count is high. I love the fact that he has 3 defense in alt mode and the fact that you can repair him as you're suiting him up. He could easily go into an orange shell as a, heavy attacker. That's kind of where I see him. And especially in his bot mode, you start giving this guy weapons like Power Punch, and now I give him a grenade launcher, and now that's gone. So I give him Erratic Lightning or something else, whatever it is. Every time you do that, you're dealing 1 more point of damage to whoever you want. I mean, free zaps are pretty cool, especially in an orange build.
So judging from what the other wreckers that we've seen, it seems like they actually want to be in a blue shell, from what I'm getting at, because basically in a blue shell, making your weapons, giving them +1 is pretty significant. Even if you can, because you don't have to spread the damage to anyone or to just the defender, it can be on anyone else. And then the healing is extra padding 3 times. Of course, we have to mention that is pretty neat.
I love it.
Extra padding. But yeah, I think this guy. I want to see the record battle card first before I give judgment on this guy, because it feels like we don't know the whole story with this guy, like why he doesn't have any other tags besides leader and wrecker. So I don't really know if I have that many opinions of him until I see that card, if we get it.
When I see 11 stars in an aggressive deck, it's having to compete with General Optimus from Wave 3. The bold that everybody gets is better than what this guy is bringing to the table. He's a leader also, but so is General Optimus, so you don't get any of the leader perks like Matrix of Leadership on top of what General Optimus would give you. And the 1 damage is great, but you can think that you're getting all that extra damage from the extra bold that General Optimus is giving everybody. And he's not bigger. He's not stronger, so I just think that this guy's really going to be competing with General Optimus if you're talking about putting it in an aggressive deck.
You didn't betray me. You betrayed yourself.
Yeah, I think one thing to mention is that Matrix of Leadership, while it does work on him because he's not a bot leader, it doesn't actually trigger either his alt or bot mode abilities, and I think that's going to hurt him. Just the fact that it feels like you're kind of being torn during your upgrade kind of action during the turn, right? I guess your upgrade phase, you could call it, right? That you won't want to play an armor or a weapon on him in order to actually get value out of the text in his text box, but the utility might end up being the best thing for him. I'm not really sure. I have no idea why he doesn't have either a combat tag or a vehicle tag in either mode. That kind of boggles my mind. I wonder if it's kind of something they're trying to experiment with in the same way that they're trying to experiment with the Windsweeper having the vehicle tag in bot mode, right? Like maybe this is just a one-off thing, and they think if this doesn't matter that much, maybe this is something we can explore in the future as a way to kind of depower certain characters. I am glad that Kai made sure to get our one requisite mention of extra padding into the episode. Because I think we're contractually obligated to mention extra padding.
Extra padding.
Extra padding.
Extra padding.
In every single episode. It's nice to get out of the way early, is all I'm saying. This guy doesn't really impress me, though. I do think he's going to be a house in sealed, but he's a super rare, so you're not going to see him very often. I really am looking for either a battle card that specifically works very well with Wreckers, or at least a couple of cards that have kind of like those conditional pips that are based on the Wrecker symbol. I think if there's any number of cards that are solid and playable with those Wrecker symbol pips on them, that might make Roadbuster something we're really interested in exploring in the future. But as of now, I just don't see that much to him.
He does have a stratagem. It
True.
says your deck can have 1 extra star's worth of weapons and 1 extra star's worth of armors. I'm not seeing that that's going to be huge right now. However, that can really change in the future as they release more star cards that are weapons and armors.
You're totally right. You're totally right.
So I mean, the only weapons, the only star cards that we have that are weapons and or armors right now is currently mounted missile, and energized field, I believe. And there's also indestructible sword as well, but
there's a blast shield.
Yes, you are correct. There is blast shield. Ignoring the last two that we discussed about, I think that means that you can play a double orange and then a double blue in your deck for like either 7 of either. I think that's pretty neat. But the one thing to note is mounted missiles will trigger his zap ability, so I think that's probably the one you'll choose over indestructible sword.
I think these stratagems like this are pretty cool, where they cost you 1 star and they allow you to put 2 more stars in your deck. If you were going to put those one of those cards in your deck anyway, like let's say you had room and were going to put a mounted missile in your deck, you might as well play the stratagem and play that and another star card if you can find one that's relevant. There's not that many of them right now, so this card will get stronger over time if Roadbuster is a usable card.
Yeah, I also think it's important to mention that I don't believe we've seen any star card battle cards yet this set, have we?
We have not.
Not yet.
That's interesting. I wonder if they're saving them for the kind of like end of spoiler season to preserve the hype going into release. I do think something to note here is that something that people might miss in trying to evaluate this card, maybe like newer players, this actually only nets you up 1 star, right? So one of the things I think can be powerful in gauging how effective some of these stratagems are is how many stars you get for how many stars you're spending. So I think there's a couple ones that make it really easy for that to be a comparison. I think one that's a great comparison here is actually Sky Shadow Sync, right? So this is going back a long ways, like to the beginning of spoiler season, and this is the stratagem that combines the 2 Sky Shadow pieces when one of them is KO'd into the big Sky Shadow piece and pulls the ominous outside of the game onto that combined character's ahead. So because that card is getting you 3 stars of a head from spending 1 star, and it's very likely going to give you another attack from just like the combined character coming in untapped, it really means that card is probably getting you somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 2.5 value worth of stars just from spending 1, which thus means it's going to be, deck building restriction aside, that's a pretty awesome rate, in all honesty. Whereas weapons cache, you're getting 2 stars for spending 1 star, and the deck building restriction is not in the character lineup, it's in the actual battle deck, where slots are kind of tight at this point. I don't know if you guys are kind of feeling that yourselves, but it's only actually netting you up 1 star. So I'm not sure if it's the best rate to be spending on the card. That's my personal opinion. I would be shocked if we didn't get more star cards, maybe armors or weapons in this set. But as of now, I'm just not super excited to play this.
I think that the opinion may change a little bit if we ever see a double blue weapon that is a star card or a double orange armor that's a star card. They haven't printed anything like that yet, I don't think. So, but if you could run an energized field and then a double blue weapon, well, now I'm playing 8 double blues in my deck. Kind of cool.
All right. So the next one is Night Racer. She's a car ranged, 5 stars. She's 3 attack, 11 health, 2 defense, and while you have a face down or face up secret action, each of your characters get tough 1. And then in her bot mode side, she's range 4, 11, 1. And while you have a face down or face up secret action, each of your characters has bold 1. So obviously, I think we need to make the comparison to Flame War because they're both 5 stars and they both give tough 1 or bold 1 to everyone. And I think she's probably actually a little better than Flame War.
Yeah, there's a few reasons why she might be better than Flame War. In the right deck, she's always giving tough 1 on the beginning turn. You don't even have to flip her over. Plus, more health. More health is always good. And the added bonus that she's a car. She could go in some sort of cars deck or something like that to go with Cliff Jumper and drawing a bunch of cards.
She's also ranged. I think that's important to note, right? I don't mean to belabor the same point we talk about every single time we meet and talk about this kind of thing, but ranged characters just right now have the highest incentives. If you're going to pick a combat tribe for a character, if you have 2 basically equivalent characters and one of them is ranged, right now it's just correct to pick that character. That may change in the future, but it's just objectively true right now. One of the virtues of Wind Charger that I was extolling was the fact that, early in the game, it's not a very flip-intensive card. I thought that added a lot to deck building because some of the most powerful decks to play, I guess not powerful, but some of the best choices to play for decks at tournaments are decks with easy flip sequences for your characters. I don't know if you've ever talked about this point before.
Yeah, flip density. Yeah, that's.
Well, yeah, not just flip density, but also if it's basically always correct to flip your characters in a certain way in the early turns of a game, it minimizes the number of cascading mistakes you can make, right? Mm-hmm. Like from whether it's lack of experience or nerves, it's a way to kind of help you combat that. And I think Night Racer, obviously wanting to be, or I guess in my opinion, obviously wanting to be in a blue-based deck with lots of secret actions, and that you don't have to flip her early in the game, then I think that's in and of itself like an extra point of value for it. Being 5 stars is an incredible rate too.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Night Racer. As soon as I saw this card, not only is it a deep cut into the lore of the game, she was a BotCon exclusive way back, and that's that's really cool. And the fact that she's an SRT and has such a powerful ability. Obviously, you want to pair her with either Wave 3 Shockwave or Wave 3 Skywarp or any other card that they release that loves secret actions in a blue, or even perhaps a mixed pip shell, or even a mixed black and blue. There's so many possibilities starting to open up with this game, and it has me really excited.
Yeah, I agree with all those points, but the main reason I'm actually super excited about Night Racer is her stratagem. So her stratagem reads, your deck can have up to 2 extra stars of secret actions. So right now we only know of 2 secret actions in the game that do that. Even the Score, which is double orange, and Heroic Resolve, which is double blue. And my God, both of those secret actions are ridiculous.
It's true.
Even just playing her, you get 8 doubles of whatever color you want automatically right off the bat. And then if you're playing Autobots, like say you play her with Battlefield Legend, you just get 2 free Heroic Resolve. So your big boy is going to live even longer by flipping the defense. But if you play that card, then it's just so crazy how much value she gives to your teams with just the stratagem, and the fact that she also gives tough 1 when you play those, tough 1 or bold 1. When you play either of those.
Those are strong secret actions, but like I said, with Weapons Cache, this card should become stronger over time just because they're going to release more star cards that are secret actions. It would only make sense for them to do so. So this is one to keep an eye on. It'll get stronger as the game progresses.
I think also that you mentioned Weapons Cache, Joel. I think between the two of them, if you're looking at Roadbuster or Night Racer, and their stratagems, I do think that Roadbuster's stratagem is more likely to become relevant sooner, but I also think that Night Racer's low star cost initially means that the investment that that character requires from your team lineup is just so much lower. Like the opportunity cost is just so much lower that even if we see just kind of one secret action that's a star card that is really solid to play with Night Racer on a team with Night Racer, I wouldn't be shocked to see it. I think one of the other points that kind of makes this stratagem better than Roadbuster's stratagem is that because you can spend both stars on secret actions, you can actually play two copies of the same star card secret action, right? Like they don't have to be different names. And whereas like Roadbuster, because you have to play a weapon and an armor, unless we see a star card improved version of something like Crystal of Power, those are going to be different cards. They may very well end up having to be pulling you in different directions as well. Who knows? I think the stratagem for Night Racer is so cool. I don't think it necessarily has a place in the meta game yet. But we still have a lot of battle cards left to go. Like we're saying, it's going to get this character and the stratagem will get better over time too.
Yeah, I really, really like this stratagem quite a bit. I think, yeah, as everyone has already said, as the game continues to open up and develop, this is going to be really, really cool. Grab your Night Racer while you can. That's all I can say.
So I'm going to have to learn to keep my mouth shut because Richard asked me before the podcast, hey, Joel, which one of these SRTs can you throw the biggest wet blanket on? And I was like, boy, I just really love Autobot Whirl. And he said, okay, well, you could talk about him, so here we go.
You have a big mouth, man.
Autobot Whirl is a helicopter, a wrecker, and ranged, 12 stars, 7 attack, 15 body, 0 defense. When this attacks and you flip at least 1 blue, do 1 damage to each non-defending enemy. In bot mode, he has 6 attack and 1 defense, remains ranged, and says this can't take more than 5 attack damage from a single ranged character's attack. So the reason I'm really not a big fan of this card is he's 12 stars, which means he has to be the centerpiece of your team, and yeah, he's got a big body and he hits for a lot on the initial swing, but this card's really confused because you want to attack in the alt mode so that you can do all that extra damage and he swings for more attack, but you don't want to defend in that mode, so you have to expose him in that mode with 0 defense. I'm just really not a fan of 0 defense with 12 stars invested. I really don't like that. So he's going to take a big old swing, and maybe it's too late to move him into bot mode for the bot mode ability to even have any kind of effect.
I don't like playing blue pips in decks where my centerpiece character has 0 defense. That seems like a bad idea, personally. I don't think you're maximizing what the character is trying to do when you're doing that. And maybe they intended for this card to be some kind of like mixed pip incentive character, but that's just not what I see it as. I see it as like a weirdly statted, overcosted, under-healthed character. First 12 stars. The art is really cool. Like there's, and it's a wrecker, so if we get some of the record cards that are really solid or kind of like change the playability of those characters as a whole, like that could be something that we could look into going forward, but I'm just not super excited by this guy. I think if you're going to try to limit 5 attack damage or 5 damage on attack at the max, I think you might just want to play Vanguard and some other, some dorks, some smaller characters. Like the orange-black Pierce deck from PPT Orlando, like, as opposed to spending 12 stars on 15 health, which is just like, it's just not that good of a rate, right? Like, I think of how many better 12 stars I can come up with off the top of my head, right? Nemesis Prime is better than this card. You've got Sergeant Springer from Wave 4 who's better than this card. Lord Megatron is better than this card. And, like, that's just off the top of my head. I'm not even really thinking that hard. I mean, even Captain Alita 1 has more health than this card, and that card, that guy is like she's not playable, right? I mean, we're talking about 0 defense, high health characters. I'm not excited. I wish that I was, but I'm not.
Cool. All right, so Autobot Whirl, it's hard for me to think of a place where he really fits, where I'm like, oh man, I've just been waiting for a character like this. At the same time, I do feel like he trades stats for pretty powerful ability. anytime he attacks and you flip at least one blue, you get to strafing run every enemy that's not defending. I kind of feel like it should be every enemy. If it was, this would definitely be quite a bit better. But yeah, I feel he's just really so flip intensive for what he is. Maybe if, ranged is just really getting out of control, maybe he could be a sideboard card if there's some good wrecker abilities to go with him.
I try to be positive about as many cards as I can be, but really, I think this guy's probably he'll probably only ever shine as a sideboard card, and he's only taking 3 attacks at that, and that's assuming they're not actually hitting him with like hovercrafts or marksmanships or any of that stuff. So I honestly can't tell you what I see in this guy's future, really.
Well, I can tell you that things get even better when we're talking about his stratagem.
Oh boy, really?
Yes.
What's his stratagem do?
Pop-up attack says, when one of your helicopters attacks and you have Autobot Whirl, aerial assault on the battlefield, plan 1. That costs a star. You have to play with helicopters. This guy has to still be alive with his 0 defense.
Wait, you still have to be in play?
That's what it says.
Oh my god.
On the battlefield. Yeah, I didn't see that either.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my goodness.
Yikes.
Oh, this is the worst stratagem. This is the worst stratagem, bar none. I would be impressed if they printed a worse one. And I don't mean to be like disparaging, right? I think Whirl is a much better card than Pop-Up Attack is. There just aren't that many helicopters, and like would have to have some kind of crazy incentive for putting cards back on top of your deck in order for this to be really relevant. Like I just don't see a world in which this is going to be that relevant. It's card disadvantageous. It costs a star. You have to play helicopters. You have to play Whirl. Your helicopters have to be in their helicopter mode, so they have to want to be attacking in their alt mode as well.
Yeah, and you plan when you're attacking, so you can't even do cute stuff like field communicator, whatever you plan. So it's like somehow it makes it worse on top of all the planning niche things that you could do.
Yeah.
I think that it only works with a card like Metal Detector or Anticipation Engine, something like that. Again, I'm trying not to just shut the door on Whirl and his stratagem, but it's kind of hard to even leave it creaking open at the moment. I will say, like Whirl, he is one of the coolest characters lore-wise. I mean, he's a real jerk and is always down for a fight. He has a frenemy in Cyclonus in the More Than Meets the Eye IDW comic, and their relationship is just hilarious. It's funny, it's dark, it's cool, and they're both just such jerks to each other, but in this friendly rival kind of way when they're not actually duking it out. Those two characters alone are worth like reading More Than Meets the Eye.
I've been meaning to try to pick that up anyway. I don't know if this has happened for Kai. I know you weren't as into the lore like when you started playing the game, but like as I've started to play the game more, like my curiosity's just been piqued, and I started to dip my toe in to kind of like the backstory, the IP myself. And the IDW comics just sound so interesting that sooner or later I'm just gonna have to pick them up.
Go get the trade paperbacks. And it's got a collection of so many of the issues, and you can find this stuff on Amazon, and when you're done reading one, then order the next. It is totally and completely worth reading. You can also get them in, digital as well, which is cool. But one last thing about Whirl and the lore.
Wait, Kent, before you keep going, my birthday is coming up. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, is that a hint?
All I'm saying is I'm just putting that fact out into the ether.
The perfect gift.
I expect nothing, but I'm just saying.
Well, you may be happy with your expectation then.
Yes.
Anyways, I would back to him and Cyclonus. Like the closest thing that I can compare their relationship to is if you ever watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine, is Odo and Quark.
So the next character we have up is actually Beachcomber. Beachcomber was revealed today as of the recording of this podcast. And he's an Autobot. He's a car in melee in alt mode for 6 stars. You're getting 3 attack, 10 health, and 2 defense. And when you flip to this mode, name a card. Then you reveal the top card of your deck. If the top card of your deck is the named card, you draw 3 cards. I'm sorry if I did a terrible job of explaining that. But basically, if you pick the top card of your deck correctly, you get to draw 3 cards, including that card, which is pretty awesome. And then when he flips to bot mode, he stays melee, gains an attack and loses a defense, so he's 4, 10, 1, and then he has focus 1. And some badass art on bot mode, just saying.
His art is cool.
Yeah, I think this card is pretty sick. For 6 stars, I think you'll love to see this in any kind of deck that, maybe peaks at the top card of your deck, hint, hint, major shockwave, hint, hint. Or maybe something where maybe you're planning, maybe you could use him in tandem in limited with something like if you're lucky enough to open Wind Charger, right? I mean, you can use those guys together to kind of generate card advantage on the long run for not that many stars. Melee, so he's the worst combat try, which is unfortunate. But 10 health is nothing bad for 6 stars. I really do think this might be something that can help Major Shockwave come back to the competitive arena.
So Beachcomber, not a ton to say about this guy. I do think if you have resources such as Datapad, as far as drawing 3 cards, card advantage, I think as the game continues to develop, is going to become more and more of a thing. Is it worth 6 stars and having some ability like Datapad unless you already have another character that helps you plan, or battle cards that help you plan, like Secret Dealings?
So this actually combos pretty well with one of my favorite cards in this game, Reclaim. So Reclaim is one of those cards that gives you almost just enough of what you want because you want the upgrade, but it puts it on the top of your deck. So I obsess over cards that just let you draw by just flipping, like Springer. I played Reclaim with Springer. I played Reclaim with Sergeant Mirage. That was my actual favorite reason why I played Mirage in Wave 4. Being able to draw 3 cards is, first of all, that's insane.
Yeah.
If this was any other card game, this card would be crazy, but this isn't. So bringing that back, so the problem for me with Mirage was 7 stars was almost a little too much for the slot that I want to fit it in, which is the Reclaim for upgrades slot. So Beachcomber, I think I'm probably going to actually try him out with the Reclaim stuff because I really just like being able to grab that one of Energy Pack or the one of Laser Cutlass or any of that stuff, and just being able to get 2 other cards is pretty good. So he's pretty good for a common, yeah.
He's a common.
Yeah, he's really good. So
Hopper goodies or junkie on goodies.
Kai makes a really good point with Reclaim. I was going to say that while he seems like he would fit in with a Shockwave deck really well because of Shockwave being 14 stars and Beachcomber being 6 stars, and then you have your 5-star slot for Flame War or something else. That deck's really flip intensive. You want to be flipping Shockwave over and over. You really wouldn't want to be flipping Beachcomber over and over, so I don't think that that's the place for it. So some sort of niche situation like Reclaim or something else where you're putting cards on top of your deck so that you know exactly what's there is the only kind of deck that this would be worth it. And I'm not sure that that's always worth a combat flip because having 3 extra cards, isn't really that big of a deal sometimes because if you lose the game with 10 cards in your hand, then they didn't do you anything. So I like Beachcomber for 6 stars, but I'm not sure that he really has a place right now.
Totally reasonable. Let's see if his stratagem changes your mind, Joel, because he does have one, like most of the characters we got this week, interestingly enough. His is Science Officer. It's 1 star. It's similar to Night Racer's stratagem or to Roadbuster's stratagem, but it says your deck can have up to 1 extra star of actions and up to 1 extra star of upgrades. So I like this stratagem. I think it's probably my second favorite of those 3 that I mentioned, behind Stealth Mission, because it's not anywhere near as restrictive as Weapons Cache is, but it does still make you play 2 different star cards, which is unfortunate. I know, you could get Fuel Cache out of it, and then that kind of works with any type of upgrade or pip you're trying to flip, but generally speaking, I think I would need to see a better place for Beachcomber himself before I was really considering the stratagem.
Completely agree with that. I will say his stratagem seems better, at least in some ways, than Roadbuster's, where his just granted like a star worth of weapon and a star's worth of armor. This is 1 star of any upgrade and 1 star of any action. We'll see, but I do agree that he needs a home first.
Yeah, for sure. And even if he does get a home, I think I wouldn't be sold on this because of the upgrades. The only real star upgrade that really gets played is Energized Field and Mounted Missiles, and those aren't too particularly exciting. Like the main ones that are exciting is the actions like Leap of Faith or Bolt of Lightning.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like how you're not excited to play Indestructible Sword with this guy?
I am very not excited to do that. I can reclaim that. Why would I want to reclaim that?
I think that this stratagem is really neat. I wish that it was attached to a different bot so that it would get more use because, as y'all said, just echoing what y'all said, he doesn't necessarily go in any decks that we know of right now, so this stratagem might go largely unplayed when it's maybe even the most flexible of the give you extra star cards stratagems.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that does it for the regular characters, which we got a lot of this week. We do have a body mode to talk about.
Cool. We have Fangry. This character is so awesome, and the art is so cool on it. This game has never seen art quite like this on his beast mode, his alt mode, because he is this hybrid werewolf bat, and oh my gosh, he's like such a cool character in the lore. Also, like in the original Marvel Comics run, after the Autobots and Decepticons, they kind of unite to beat Unicron. Optimus dies, leaves someone else in charge, no spoiler there. And they're having peace talks. They're having this giant meeting conference type of thing. And Fangry just lashes out in the middle of it. It's like, well, what about, this? And then Grimlock takes a can and throws it at his head, and he says, "Shut up, you dumb con, and we'll tell you." And then, of course, that just leads to Fangry throwing Grimlock through a wall. And then he transforms into this beast mode, and it's like a full page spread of him, and he looks so awesome. And then he's like, "For daring to strike me, you will die 1,000 terrible deaths." And that's oh my gosh, it looks so cool on that art in the comic. Definitely check that out if you get the chance. Anyway, Fangry, 6 stars, 4 attack, 11 health, 2 defense. When this is attacking an enemy that has more stars than him, he has bold 2. That's pretty good. We flip over to his body mode, where he is melee again, and 4 attack, 11 health, and 2 defense. When this is defending against an enemy that has fewer stars than him, he has tough 2. Really interesting. Reminds me a bit of Ape Face, because Ape Face has a circumstantial bold 2 in one mode and then tough in another, which is kind of interesting, and definitely makes me think about Barrage too because of his bold 2 and low star cost.
Yeah, I think this is better than Barrage. I'm super excited about this card. Not to state the obvious, but bold 2 on this 6-star body. Now, yes, whenever you put a head on there, the star count goes up. It's not going to be hard to find a character to attack that has more stars than your Fangry. I mean, I guess if you're playing against a 6-wide deck, it might be kind of hard. But in that case, they're playing a 6-wide deck. They're probably sort of fighting an uphill battle against you anyway. I'm thinking about Fangry with a 1-star head on it, like maybe Parsec or something like that, and bold 3 on a 7-star on turn 1. You're going to find somebody's head to bash in with that guy. I love Fangry so much. You don't have to flip him over. He's going to be a house, and 11 health, 2 defense. This is exactly the kind of card I'm looking for.
I do like this guy. He seems really strong. Just bold 3 with the Parsec, as you said, Joel, is just really good because even if he dies, he did a lot of damage. There are builds that you could play where you could be playing him, Parsec, and then another Titan Master with Clobber, and then that's just two guys with bold 3, and this is like, oh my god, this is so crazy to defend against. So this card is really good.
One of the things I want to point out is between Fangry, Horrible, Skull Smasher, and Wolfwire and Apeface, that's 5 beasts. Some people, there's rumblings that it's only a matter of time before Beast Wars is something that we do in the game, and I'm very much looking forward to that because that was part of my introduction to the IP when I was younger. But I will say this. As far as a ball of stats goes, Fangry for 6 stars blows my mind. 11 health starting. You could even play him with Kreb, right? Any of the 1-star heads is reasonable to play, or several of the 1-star heads are reasonable to play with Fangry because you want him to be minimum stars as possible for his alt mode ability to be triggering. But I mean, just like the idea that you get a 4 bold 2 with a ton of health, reasonable defense, it's unbelievable to me. I wouldn't be shocked if this was the most played aggressive character from this set. I mean, there are some other ones that are pretty decent, right? Like you've got Horrible, you've got who we talked about earlier, Wind Charger. There's some really interesting aggressive characters in this set, but I think Fangry takes the cake. There's so many ways you can play him. You could play him with Clobber. I know they put him up to 10 stars, but 10 is still smaller than most of the centerpiece characters, right? Smaller than General Optimus Prime, infantry leader from Wave 3, smaller than Jetfire, smaller than Combined Sky Shadow, smaller than Galaxy Prime from Wave 4, like smaller than Sergeant Springer. Like, you're still smaller than all of those characters. I mean, there are several characters from this set that will still be smaller than. Smaller than Skull Smasher Kai.
Yep.
This card is insane.
So we're looking at Briscoe. He's plus 3 health for 2 stars, and on his bot mode side, he's a Titan Master melee, 3 attack, 3 health, and 0 defense. I don't know really why you would play him, because I feel like you could just get that same amount with just Kreb and then playing a star card like Energized Field or something, and it almost kind of equals the same thing.
Well, if the idea was for Briscoe to go with Fangry, then you're talking about a 8-star 14 life character with bold 2 on turn 1. Fangry. Sorry, I don't mean to talk about Fangry again. I'm just super excited about Fangry. But yeah, Briscoe was released with Fangry, so that seems to be the head that they intended for Fangry. But Briscoe himself isn't fantastic. I do think that 3 health for 2 stars is really not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that people's evaluation of Briscoe is going to be a little bit flavored by the fact that the other health-related heads we've already gotten have been insane on rate, right? Like, both Grax and Kreb are nuts on rate. Like, for Grax, you're getting 5 health for 3 stars, which is almost 2 health a star. For Kreb, you're getting 2 health for 1 star. And Briscoe is just the worst rate of the 3 of them. I think that's going to flavor people's kind of opinion of him in a negative way, but Briscoe's totally solid. I mean, if you've got the stars to spare and your battle deck is tight, I think you just play Briscoe on a Titan Master over Kreb every single time, in my opinion. You guys can feel free to disagree with me in that, but there's also the chance that you might be in a deck that wants to maximize health but play multiple Titan Masters. And in that case, you might want to pair Briscoe with either Kreb or Grax as the additional health heads. Who knows, right? Like, I think there's plenty of places for this to see play. I think it's rare for a reason. I'm just kind of excited to get my hands on some of these Titan Masters and play with the heads and bodies myself.
Yeah, I wish that it granted +4, because then you would have a real decision on your hands. For me, it feels like, why wouldn't you just play Grax over that, or Kreb? Either one. I hate to even say that, because I love the head picture too, with the moon in the background. A lot of the backgrounds on the heads are just not that interesting, but the picture's just so cool on this one. But +3, I just think you get a better rate with the other two heads that grant health.
It sounds like I'm the only person who's really positive on this guy.
I will say that this is what I expected the rate to be if we did get HP on a head, but then they showed us Grax and they're like, oh, well, out the window. And then now we have this one, so.
Grax is insane. Like, there's
Yeah,
no
that-
arguing that.
Yeah, those two are insane. I do understand your point, Richard.
I think, okay, so that's like 14 heads, I think, that we have through spoilers. I cannot imagine they're going to give us more than like 15. Right, like-
I don't know. We still have several like Headmaster, Titan Masters to go if they all fit into the set.
Man, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like you have Nightbeat, you have Mind Wipe, you have Highbrow, I think,
Optimus.
and Hosehead. I mean, I think there could be quite a few more if they want to release them all in this one set, or they might want to keep some back for future sets. I mean, kind of like they have on Combiners.
Like, we're pretty confident we're going to get Optimus and Apex because of the packaging.
I would
Right.
think so, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a minimum of 15 heads because we know there's at least one more. But, like, how many, you think of what, like 18 heads? That feels like a lot of characters that are going to be heads in the set.
I mean,
Right.
they did say that there was going to be more heads than bodies, so.
Right now we
true,
have
too.
16.
We have 16?
16.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
'cause of
miscounted.
Perceptor, right?
Yeah, you got the one Perceptor, the Convex. You've also got Arcana, and then you've got the two that come with Fortress Maximus. I don't know if you were counting that.
Oh, I wasn't counting Cerebros or the bad one. Emissary?
Emissary.
Emissary.
The bad
The
one.
bad one.
It's so bad. 4 stars for Focus 2. Come on.
I'm reserving my judgment for when I actually play with Emissary.
Yeah,
That's
me too.
fair. I do think Fort Max is sick, though. I've played some like mock-up games with Fort Max. I think he's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I do too. I love that guy.
Okay, well, I think we're going to call it here for the first part of episode 4. We've made it through the character portion, and man, is it just me, or were there just like a ton more traditional characters this week?
Woo!
Yeah.
I love the Titan Masters, but love me some traditional characters.
Absolutely.
They're certainly easier to slot into kind of the existing archetypes.
They're also not annoying to tap.
True. Oh, I think that's an undersold point of playing a deck that's like based around kind of the more traditional character setup than the Headmasters or Titan Masters. Is tapping the Titan Masters can exact a toll on my mental health over the course of a night of play.
Yeah, at this point, I just tap the body and just leave the head like on his hand or something. I just not cared at this point.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's probably the way to do it.
Anyway, stay tuned for the next part of the episode that has the remaining stratagems from this week and the battle cards that were revealed as well. And like we have said in the past couple episodes, we appreciate all of you out there who are listening, and we want to know if there's anything that we haven't covered that you really like us to. Maybe it's a specific strategic question. Maybe it's about the way we kind of try to evaluate spoilers, anything like that. If you would, go ahead and drop a comment on the video or comment those questions on the Facebook post that inevitably will lead you to listen to this podcast. We'll be back before you know it with the rest of this week's spoilers, but until that time, clear eyes, flip bots, can't lose.